I'm going to talk a little bit about self-service in Microsoft Azure AD Premium. What the reason for coming up with this topic really was that we are running training courses now in Enterprise Management Suite, so that includes Azure AD Premium and AD RMS and so on, AD Connect and so on. And it just occurred to us that there was this little handful of topics that related to self-service and that they're pretty attractive to people getting involved with Azure AD. So what I'm going to do is just very briefly talk about what Azure AD Premium is, just a sort of level setting, a couple of slides on that, explain what I've set up by way of a demo, and then get on with demoing some self-service. So most of this will be demo, you'll be pleased to hear. A few slides to go through first, a couple of slides at the end. What is Azure Active Directory? Well, the extension of Active Directory in the cloud is one way of saying it. You're probably aware that where Active Directory involves you setting up your own servers and taking care of your own IT, this is tenancy-based. You take out a tenancy, you don't have to worry about servers and patches anymore. There are various redundancy options that you can take out, but fundamentally you don't have to worry about scaling. What I mean about redundancy options is your data being stored in more than one place, in more than one region, that kind of thing. There are 3 versions. So there's a free version of Azure AD, which anyone will have at least this if they've already got Office 365. They may not know it, or they may know it. The fact is that they've got it. And there is a basic version, which actually only involves a few additions, which is available through volume license resellers. But you can buy either directly through the O365 portal or by going through a reseller. You can buy Azure AD Premium. Usually it's part of Enterprise Management Suite, and that is the 3rd level. Just to give you an idea about the features, this is a feature comparison for the 3 types. So that the white, you can see this is the free edition, which is the white rows towards the top, then the basic edition, and then the premium edition, AAD Premium, which is what I'm talking about, which is the darker grey there. And it involves things like group management and multi-factor authentication, various things which are additional to the free version. What I want to focus on today are the self-service parts, and in this list there are several references to self-service, and you'll see that if you want the full self-service experience, you're going to need AAD Premium. And that means that only people that have been licensed for AADP are going to have access to these facilities. I mean, only individual users. I also want to just mention the word hybrid in relation to this. Most organizations already will have Active Directory, and so will need a hybrid approach. In other words, that they'll need some kind of synchronization between their users that they are already managing on premises and their users in the cloud. In fact, the normal way in which these things happen is that you start with your Active Directory users and you project them, you provision them into the cloud using AAD Connect, which is a program you can download and run on perhaps on one of your servers, perhaps one of your domain controllers even, and you can set up synchronization. That synchronization can be bidirectional. It's possible to do it the other way around, but what we usually care about is taking users, groups, contacts, and having all of those pushed up into the cloud so that we have the same users and groups available in both domains. Users and groups then will typically originate on-premise and be automatically provisioned to the cloud. They could be cloud only, they could be a mixture, and it is quite possible you could do it all the other way around, but I think that would be relatively rare. Where an object does originate on premises, admins are restricted in what they can do to them in Azure. The authority, in other words, stays on premises, and vice versa. If somebody's created in the cloud, then it's relatively restricting what you would do to them on premise. This is going to look like, just to give you an idea of my demo setup. So from an administrator point of view, there's an on-premises setup, which we will not focus on, although I will very briefly show you that the same users are being managed at both ends. But importantly, there is a cloud Azure Active Directory tenant, and we're synchronizing between them. So we'll find that we've got a bunch of users that originated on premises, they're now in the cloud, and people also added just in the cloud. As far as the administration is concerned, the administrator can obviously get access to the on-premises environment. But when I say on-premises environment, I don't literally mean servers sitting in somebody's office. Actually, they're virtual machines in the cloud, but philosophically, they're on-premises systems. We'll be using the Azure portal, so using Internet Explorer, or let's say a browser anyway, and getting access to the Azure portal. The Azure portal talks to AAD. Why? Well, because it's managing it apart from anything else, but in terms of anything to do with finding out about users, finding out about groups, who has access to do what, who's allowed to do what, and so on. Obviously, there's a conversation going on in the background. We'll also be using the O365 portal. It turns out that there's a lot of overlap between these, and in the future we imagine some grand unification of portals, but at the moment there are some things that you can do in the portal, some things in the Azure portal, and of course it also is talking to AAD in the background in order to find out what license somebody's got, what they're allowed to do, what group they're in, and so on. So that's going to be how we look at things administratively, and then how we look at things as a user, so the user experience we get. We've still got, of course, exactly the same thing sitting there, and exactly the same thing sitting there, and we will talk to we'll be accessing the data via initially the MyApps portal. So the user's fundamental experience is to go to myapps.microsoft.com, where they'll see what applications they've got and what self-service options that they have available to them. And that's going to be the launching point for everything. That may well be that from there you launch an app. It could be Exchange or SharePoint, in which case, again, Exchange and SharePoint would be talking to Azure Active Directory in the background, because again, what groups are available, what distribution lists, how is the security arranged, what's this person allowed to do, and so on. Or it could be that we launch some application. The only application I'll use today will be Twitter, just because it's a nice, easy application to implement and use. And again, using a browser, using IE or whatever, we'll get access to that. Whether that application further talks to Azure Active Directory or not rather depends on the application. In the case of Twitter, it doesn't. You simply launch it and you're there. So these are the setups I'm going to be using, and I'm going to be talking about self-service, and self-service is inextricably linked to delegated administration. In other words, we are allowing self-service typically with authorization through the ownership of groups and so on, and so we're also pushing down administration to a level that makes sense. So whoever owns the data, whoever pays for the licenses, whoever controls the security at that level, that's where we want to push that data, push that responsibility to. So I'm going to demo self-service password reset, which is a pretty obvious one, pretty straightforward. Then, much more interesting, I think, is self-service of groups. Security groups, but actually also distribution lists, but that happens to be still in preview in Azure AD Premium, so I tend to stay away from demoing too much that's in preview because, well, frankly, it doesn't always work, and I'm going to stick pretty much to security groups, and security groups are really the interesting ones because that opens up a whole bunch of self-service capabilities. Also talk about self-service application management, which funnily enough can be done in two different ways, and we'll talk about both of those. So let me first of all just show you that I'm logged on to our domain controller on premises, and I've got users, I've got various groups, including distribution groups, and I've got a few contacts. So we've got, and this isn't relevant to today, but we've got AD Connect running, which is synchronizing those users up to the cloud. That's all we're going to do to look at that. That's the only involvement with on-premises that we're going to have at all. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to launch a browser, and I'm going to go to the manage.microsoftonline.com, in other words, to the Azure portal. Now, the domain that I'm using is called, rather curiously, labador.xyz. It's a real domain. In other words, it's paid for. It's a genuine domain, and I'm going to log on as the administrator, and you'll see immediately there's a little bit of branding there just to show that this works and this is something different. And that's going to be one of the places that we're dealing with things. The other is we're going to go to the O365 portal, because, as I say, slightly different things happen there. So let's start out by looking at our users and groups and looking at how we've configured things for self-service. So I'm going to go, when it comes up, here we go, I'm going to go to the Labador directory. So this is just the cloud equivalent of, if you like, of going to Active Directory users' computers. If I list users, I'm going to see the same users that we were just looking at in on-premises, plus some more, as it happens. I've got some that were created in Azure. So if it says there, local Active Directory, like this one here, Adrian here, that originated in Active Directory locally on premises and was synchronized up here. If it doesn't, it was created here in the cloud. And that user is a cloud-only user, as it happens. The username here, Adrian D at labador.xyz, is exactly the same as the UPN on premises. So same login, same password have been synchronized, and so on. If I go to groups, the groups that I'm going to see here are exactly the same groups that were on premises when they come up, plus maybe some additional groups which have just been created here. Again, you see where they're sourced from, either local Active Directory or Office 365 or Microsoft Azure Active Directory. The Office 365 ones are presumably distribution groups that have been created there, and the Microsoft Azure Active Directory ones are presumably security ones that have been created here. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because we haven't got a lot of time. So apology, well, I won't apologize for talking fast and moving forward quickly. So the configuration here, first of all, I have customized the branding. I'm not going to spend time on that. You'll see that there's a user password reset policy. Users are enabled for password reset. We could restrict that to a particular group of users, but no, we're going to say all users can use a self-service password reset. First of all, they will have to get themselves set up, but fundamentally they can. And you'll see that there are various authentication methods available. I've chosen to implement 3 of these: mobile phone, alternate email address, and security questions. And I'm saying that they only need one of these authentication methods to be set up, but I could change that. When it comes to the security questions, I can choose from a list, and I can choose how many will be required for registration, how many are required for a reset, and I can choose a pool of questions, which I've done. And I can go on selecting from the pool of questions that are provided, or I could add my own one if I want to. So what is your inside leg measurement? That kind of thing. I'm not going to do that, but in principle, I could add my own questions too. When I say add my own questions, that's not per user, that is overall, will pop up for everybody. There are various other options that we don't need to get too involved with. You'll see that we are in fact writing password back to on-premises. There is an option that allows users to unlock their account without resetting their password. Can't go into all of this. If I carry on scrolling down here, I'll get down to the group management options, and you'll see that we have enabled delegated group management. So we've got, we can now devolve the responsibility for managing groups to the owners of those groups, which of course we can configure. Users can create security groups. Yes, users who can use self-service is it a set of people who can use self-service, or is it all of them? We're saying all of them. Office 365 groups, distribution groups then, we've switched it on, and we'll maybe see it if we've got time, but we'll note that that's in preview. I tend to stay away from that as far as possible. And so on. There are some other questions relating to that. So fundamentally, that's the configuration. It's not a big deal, quite straightforward to set up. A couple of other things we need to look at. People will only be able to get access to these features if they have been licensed to do so. So one of the things we'll look at here is licenses, and we'll see, I just want to note there are different ways in which we can issue these licenses. Sorry, I was too quick there. We'll say that there are 100 active licenses, 74 have been assigned. So I'm in a position, if I want to assign some more. If I look at the currently assigned users, you'll see that they've either been directly assigned, so directly assigned by literally coming in here and assigning people in groups, or not in groups, sorry, one at a time, or by selecting them, or it could have been inherited by assigning a group. In other words, I can list groups, find a group of interest, and I can assign everybody in that group. And then if somebody arrives in that group, they'll automatically be assigned a license. And so we see there, and there's another one at the bottom there, EMS license and all admin, both of those have been assigned. So people will either be assigned because they're in a group, or they'll be assigned directly. And there is an opportunity straight away there for, and I won't demo this, attempt to demo this, but if you had lots of different types of licenses, then once you've fundamentally given someone the AADP license, further licensing could be done on a self-service basis, because anything, once you've got self-service groups, anything you can do with a group can become a self-service feature. So it would be perfectly possible for us to have self-service groups with, presumably, authorization by the owner, which would allow people to say, oh, I need a license to do something else, whatever it is. Okay, let's have a look in the Office 365 portal, and I just want to show you very briefly that you can do some of the same things here. So when it comes to users, we can look at users, we can select users, and I've set up a view here, which is a view of all people with an E5 license. That's one of the Office 365 licenses. And I'm just interested to note that Andy Hill here has been licensed, and he's one of the people we're going to use. So is, well, Adrian here. We'll probably have a quick look at him as well. And in fact, you can bulk edit here, and you can make license changes here, but you can't license by group for O365 licenses yet. So there is a limitation there. Okay, one last thing to say about groups is that groups can be handled in various ways. So if we look at this group here, and let me get back to groups, sorry. So if we look at the EMS, we'll get there in a minute. I need to just have a quick look at, let's look at this EMS data one here. And if we go to configure, we'll see it's been configured for dynamic membership. So nothing to do with self-service. This is, if you like, the other way of doing things. You can configure things according to people's attributes. But now let's look at one, and I'm particularly interested in one down the bottom here, and I'm just going to search to get there quickly. That there is one here called policy documents. Policy documents, I just want to note that it's got some members, it's got some owners. In fact, it's got one owner, Arlene. So we are going to devolve the responsibility for who's in this group to Arlene and allow a self-service delegated admin situation with regards to this, and that's going to give people certain kinds of access. Okay, let's get down to the actual user experience. I'm going to launch a different browser here just because I need to be logged on as different people. I'm going to log on as Andy, to My Apps, and I'm going to do so as somebody new that I haven't used before, Andy H at, and it's labrador.xyz. So this is the first time he's logged on. It picks up the branding simply because of the domain, and his password, well, where will his password have come from? Various places. In this case, it's been synchronized from on-premises, so it's a password that he's familiar with. So he comes and logs on, and he gets an experience which depends on how he's been set up, because he's got an Office 365 license. He obviously gets access to those. And he could go to SharePoint, and he could go to Exchange, and we'll do that in just a moment. Let's go to Profile and see that one of the things he can do straight away is, and notice that he's being required to verify, but we're going to register for password reset anyway. So this is going to be the first of our self-service demos, if and when it decides to respond. So we're being asked to verify anyway, regardless. I haven't even got around to clicking the option to set up self-service password reset. So I'm going to get that to text my phone. Obviously, ordinarily, that phone number could be something that's been that's been entered by another means. It may not be that we want the person themselves to do it. So I've literally got the text, and I'm verifying that now. Obviously you can't see that, but I'm sure you'll trust me. Well, we might as well set up the rest of this, okay? So I'm going to also set up the email version, and except I'm going to have to put that in right, otherwise it's not going to work. I'm going to say email me. And we could also go through the QA way of doing it as well. So it will take a few moments for that to come through. So while it's happening, we'll just talk a little bit about this. So several different ways then that you can configure the self-service password reset. We've specified that somebody need only do one of them, so I don't have to complete this, and perhaps in the interest of time, I won't. So I'll just for the moment go back and say, okay, we could look at the security questions. I could enter all the security questions. I won't in the interest of time. So we'll finish that, and then we'll log out, and we'll pretend that we forgot our password. So we'll go into My Apps again. We will go in as Andy, but we will say that we can't access our account. It's a work or school account, and so it's going to say, well, there's your user ID. Let's just check you're not a robot. So JBPDV, if I've got that right. And if that's acceptable, then we'll be taken to a page where we can choose one of the methods for self-service password reset. Okay, it is very slow today, and that's because we're doing a demo and we'd like it to be quick. There we go. So I'm going to say send a text to my mobile phone. Of course, we could do it in one of the other ways. So it's going to text me. As soon as I get the text, I just key in the number that I receive in the text, and that is not happening because, again, I'm doing a demo and I'd like it to be quick. Oh, I see. I'm not concentrating. Sorry, I have to put that in. Thank you very much. Sorry, I forgot that I'm supposed to know my phone number, so put it in and confirm. Okay, now let's enter the verification code, assuming that it does come through. So 704620, 704620. Okay, and now I can change my password. and with a bit of luck that'll change. Okay, next demo, there it's been reset. Okay, so I'll go in and this time put in my password. You have no idea what password I'm typing, but I promise you that it's the new password and that we've reset our password. Okay, let's go back to our administrative session and let's have a look at how the sorry, I went to the wrong thing. Let's have a look at how, get there in the end, at how SharePoint's been set up. So one of the interesting things that you're going to want to be able to do is set up security, and we can make use of some of the groups that are self-service groups to control access to sites. Now, of course, you can ask for access to a site and you can get access to a site easily enough. But what we want to do is not have too much of that going on. What we want is a relatively small number of groups that are being managed that give the people all the access they need to all sorts of things. And that's why I think this is so powerful. If I go to the finance site here, then you'll see that there is some interesting information. We've got some charts, and we wouldn't necessarily want everybody to see that. I'm going to copy the web address just for speed. We'll need it in a moment. I'm going to go to Site Settings and then to Site Permissions and show you how that's been configured. If I look at who's a member of the site and can contribute to it, you'll see that it's admin, that's me, but it's also the group called Policy Documents. So if I go to our user here and I attempt to go to that address as this new person, oh, we've got to log in again. So put a new password in. Oops, that's not quite what I meant to do. Somehow I ended up pasting when I meant to do that. And it's going to say, I hope, that you haven't got permission to access that site. So what you would perhaps do is, as part of the general processes that we set up in this organization, presumably with sensible naming mechanisms and instructions for everybody, this person might say, well, I am going to go and find the group that I'm interested in, called Policy Documents, and I'm going to ask if I can be a member of it. Why? Because I need to review some documents. Okay, so we get that request, and it says a request has been sent to the owner. Let's go back and have a look at a different kind of group. Let's look at, you might remember we had an EMS info distribution group. Say, well, I'd like to join that group. I won't even bother giving a business justification, but if I do, that will appear in various kinds of reports and so on. It's been auto-approved because that one is freely open for people to join if they want to. So I'm going to get out of here, and instead I'm going to launch another browser, and I'm going to be the person that can approve that. So to do that, I'm going to go to my apps. Let's try doing that right. My apps, and I'm going to be Arlene H at labrador.xyz. Finger trouble there. And so we're going to go in as this person. She's going to see whatever she would normally see as a user, but additionally I'm going to go to approvals, and I'm going to see that there is now a request. For some reason we've got a couple of them, and we'll approve both of them even if only to get them both clear. So this is granting that permission to Andy. Now if that's worked properly, I should be able to go back here, go back to that website that I remembered earlier, log in as Andy, and because he's got the access now that he needs, then, oh well, that didn't work. May just need a moment to do that, but we'll try that again in just a moment. Let's go to My Apps. Oh, let's have a look. Has not come up, but we'll try that again in a moment. Another thing that we'll come back to that and just give it time to synchronize and maybe check whether I just made a mistake there. Don't think I did. Another thing we can do, last demo of self-service, is self-service applications. So you see there's an option here to get more applications. Let's just understand what's going on with that. To understand it, we need to go back and be an administrator for a moment, look at applications, and generally speaking, we'll have another number of applications that we're managing and that we've included. Lots of them here have come up just as a result of the O365 configuration, but I've got Twitter here. Let's take a look at Twitter and let's just understand how people get access to it. I can assign people individually to Twitter or to any application, but it's actually more interesting to assign some groups. So what I should have done there is say, let's look for groups starting with something. And again, because I'm in a hurry, it's going to hold me up, but let's see what we can find. Okay, let's try again. So I've got a group here called Twitter Access, as when it can get it to come up. Here we go, called Twitter Access, and I have assigned that group. So anybody in that group will get access. So here we again see fundamentally we can delegate the control of this to somebody, we can make use of self-service, but actually you can also configure applications for self-service anyway. And there isn't a lot of difference between switching this on and having it associated with a particular group or just having the group for self-service. I think you can decide to do it either way. I've got two approvers, admin, that's me, and Arlene, and I've got various people that are already approved. So two ways in which we can handle that, and I'll show you both ways because it's very easy to do so. So get more applications. Let's see what applications are available for self-service. Waiting for it to come up. And it should come up with Twitter. That's the only one as it happens. So I'm going to say, yep, I'd like some of that. And it's going to say, well, okay, we've made the request. Then the other thing I'm going to do is go to groups. And this could be, why would you do it with a group rather than the application? Because you could apply a whole set of applications in one go by managing it through a group. So there are reasons for doing it one way or the other. So I'm going to go to and ask to join the Twitter Access group. I want to tweet. And so we've asked twice in two different ways. Let's just go back and be Arlene for a moment, go to approvals, and with a bit of luck, those approvals will have appeared. By the way, if we haven't got time, but if she goes to her email, she will have an email notification that she needs to go and do these approvals. She has no approvals at the moment. That's a bit disappointing. Try again. There we go. So things are just a little bit slow. I think the US is waking up, and we tend to get things slowing down over here in Europe. So let's approve both of those, two different ways. They're both saying the same thing. I want to tweet, and the other one is just for the application. It amounts to the same thing. And we can go and look at reports of self-service activity and so on and see all of that. So what difference is that going to make for our friend here? Well, I'm in the habit of always logging out and logging back in. It seems sometimes to be necessary, and it's just easier than waiting. It seems to kick things into life. Let's go in as Andy, and we're hoping to see that he additionally has this application, which of course he hasn't, because I'm doing a demo and we'd like that to have come up quickly. Let's see whether anything's happened with our finance site. And there you see that it has synchronized up. I just needed to be patient, and there is the data. Why is he getting to that data? because anybody in that group is allowed to do this, and we've made that group a self-service group. We've delegated the management of that to Arlene, and Andy was able to request access to this. He could have just requested access to the site, of course, but what we'd probably do is gather together a whole series of things which are associated with that one security group. Let's go back and see if we can get him access to Twitter. There it is, it's come up. We just a little patience. And if I now go to Twitter, it's a real log-on, but I just want you to notice here that I am not keying anything in. I never even saw the password, and that's because this has been configured as a corporate Twitter account. Everybody who's been given access to it can use it, but they never see the password, and so as soon as we take the access away, they will lose that access. Okay, the other thing that we did was we made him part of a distribution group. So let's go to Exchange Online. Let's go to email. This is the first time he's used email. I realize I'm overrunning. I won't be much longer. And I will just choose UK. So this is the very first time he's accessed his mail. You'll see some messages straight away about your request to Twitter was approved, your membership to this has been approved. I haven't made much of the email, but all of these things involve emails to say, please go and approve this, or you have been approved, or whatever, or you've not been approved even. And if I start a new email and make it to EMS info, and just call it test, I don't know, test 5 or something, and send that, then of course I expect to be part of that group, and so I expect to receive that email too, and there it is, test 5 from myself. You can see that I did in fact receive the email. So that tells me that I'm also in that group. So what did we do? We looked at self-service password reset, we looked at self-service of distribution groups and security groups, and we looked at self-service of applications. The security groups are perhaps the most valuable because so many things can then be related to that. And by organizing my security groups well and the ownership, the delegated ownership of them well, and deciding which ones can be self-service and which ones should perhaps be query-based, I can properly manage access to a wide variety of things. Okay, so just to finish up, I'll go back to my slides. A couple of things I want to draw your attention to. One is that if you want a training course, you've got a 10% off offer running up to the end of March, so this is your last chance for that. And the final thing I would say is, please remember our summit in May. This is an annual event that we run in Redmond out of Microsoft, and I'll leave this up here with this coupon code which will allow you to get a discount off your registration. And this is an annual opportunity to hear from customers, to hear from Microsoft, and far less important, to hear from us about what's latest and good in identity and security. That's all. Thanks very much indeed. Thanks for listening, and I'm sorry for overrunning. If you've got any queries, and I do, there are some queries there, I will answer those now. If you've got any further queries, then by all means, email info@oxford-computer-group, and we will, if your questions haven't been answered, can answer them offline. So I'll now attempt to answer some of these other questions, but understandable if you have to go. So let's have a look. In a federated scenario, is self-service group management the only value add, presuming we don't have passwords in AAD? So I guess the question there is, if you're not using self-service password reset in the cloud, what's the value add? Well, self-service group management, yes. Self-service application management, yes. If the question is about self-service, then I think that's a reasonable answer, is to say it's a bit more than that, but not a huge amount more than that. Of course, there are many other features which are nothing to do with self-service, such as multi-factor authentication and so on, which are part of AAD Premium. Where is your AAD Connect located, on-prem or in the cloud? It's on-prem in the sense that it's sitting on a server, but that server happens to be in the cloud. But don't take that second part as the right answer. It's on-prem. It sits on a traditional server, and it connects to the cloud and to your Active Directory. Can we get a problem with the presentation slide deck? Yes, we can. I imagine that we will post that on our site. Jackie might want to jump in and say if there's a particular place, but you'll find it under resources, I'm sure, on our website afterwards. In fact, I'll make sure that if you go to the OCG Learning website and go to resources, we'll make sure that it's there. Same question again. Yes, thank you for pointing out that I hadn't put the mobile phone number in. I did eventually realize all on my own. Can the group membership update write back to the on-premise AD? Really good question. Only if it's a group that doesn't originate in AD. In other words, we need to make sure that it's a cloud-based group so that we can make those changes and write back. The way that write forward and write back works is it depends where the data originated. Users and groups originated on-prem can be synchronized up to the cloud, and users that originate in the cloud can be written back to on-prem. Hello and thank you. I need to leave. Okay, leave. So the approval is only available in AAD Premium, correct? That is correct. Most of what I've shown you is only available to AAD Premium users. Can you set up 2 AAD Connect just in case one fails? My thinking is no. I'm trying to think. Yes, there is a way of doing this. You can configure an AD Connect as a ready to go in case it goes wrong, but they can't both be running. So you can set up more than one, but there will only be one running at any time. Otherwise, I think chaos would reign. Is there an evaluation of your AD subscription with the features? There is. Now, that's what I was using, by the way. I was using an evaluation AAD subscription. I was doing exactly that. I think I need to get back to you. So, Alistair, if you were in info, if you're still there, info@oxfordcomputergroup.com, and ask that question again, and anybody else, by the way, that's interested, of course, I will send you details of how to get to that. There is a place you can go where you can take out an Azure evaluation subscription and provision it with users and groups and good stuff. Okay. Are there options other than security questions available for reset, like pictures? No. Not yet. So there are 3 options, well, kind of 4 options actually. You either use a phone, and there's 2 options in the sense of text or phone call, or you use an alternate email address, or you use the questions. At the moment, I think that's the limit. Do you know if there are any limitations in the AADP kiosk subscription? I don't understand the question. Kiosk subscription. Oh, I see. I don't know anything about the kiosk subscription, sorry, and I can't answer that question. My hunch is that there must be some things which don't work in quite the same way, but I'm sorry I can't answer that question. If you want to, again, send that question to info@oxfordcomputergroup.com, I will try and get it answered for you. That was a quick run through the questions. I apologize for overrunning so much. Any further questions, send them to info@oxfordcomputergroup.com. We'll do our best to answer them. So thanks very much for everybody, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday.